Those are the ones for this week and next week. We're back to practicing.
Welcome to worship with the Universalist Unitarian Church in Peoria. My name is Reverend Innis, and it is my great joy to be the minister with this congregation of people of all ages at all stages of life. It's also a joy to be back after having a little bit of a break and visiting my own family in Massachusetts, and it is so good to be back with this family as well. Together as a congregation, we strive to live into our mission of embracing freedom, loving inclusively, growing in mind, body, and spirit, and adding to the wholeness and the healing of the world. And in living our mission, we recognize the relationships of which we are a part and all of our relations and obligations. This is the ancestral home of the Peoria people. They were here far longer before the first European settlers came down the Illinois River. We honor the Peoria people for who they were and for who they are today. I want to thank folks for joining us in person and online. It is something to put ourselves out there in all the ways that we gather to try to get to know another group of people, a new institution, even a religion for some of us, in fact, who are new to Unitarian Universalism. So if you are, in fact, new, whether the first time or haven't been with us very often, please help us get to know you. Please wear a name tag and stay after the service for fellowship if you're gathering with us in person. And please also stay on Zoom if you are online, and also because that's a chance to get to know people as well. And I also want to invite folks at this moment to put your respective devices into worship mode. I know maybe Christmas brought some new devices for people, so we're still figuring out how to get to use them. So let's give that a try. All right, thank you. Also, I want to very much make sure that folks stay after the service if you're gathering with us in person, because I have heard from Marianne Shin, one of our excellent chair of hospitality, that we have an abundance of food. Yes, we love that. Yes. We have an abundance of food. We had a wonderful lunch with Reverend Michael Brown and Diane Brown yesterday. Michael is the previous minister of this congregation. This was their first time gathering, being here in person since they left and retired to Santa Fe. And it was such a joy. And the fellowship hall was full, and the tables were full, and we get to enjoy some of that fullness today. So stay after and eat. Thank you. Now, I want to invite you to rise in body or spirit and join us for our opening hymn, number 347, Gather the Spirit, by Unitarian Universalist musician Jim Scott.
Story of its
Please be seated. Let me invite Joe Lakota up to offer our opening words.
Okay. The Heart of Our Faith by the Reverend Monica Jacobson Tennyson. What is it that calls you here? That calls you onward? That calls you inward? That leads you homeward? What is it that gives you the power to make that change, to ask that question, to take that journey? What is it that says you have done well, that asks you to learn more, that brings you to stillness, that holds you up in hard times? It is a relationship, the beating heart of our faith. It begins when we share this hour, our truths, this air, our hearts. Come, let us worship together.
Thank you. And let me invite the Cardonaway family up for our chalice lighting.
Drawn Together by Jennifer Grayson. We come together every week, bound not by a creed or a mutual desire to please one God or many gods.
Yet we are drawn together by a belief that how we are in the world, who we are together, matters.
We light this chalice together in the knowledge that that love, not fear, can change this world.
When the song of the angels is stilled, when the song of the angels is stilled, when the song of the angels is stilled, the work of Christmas begins. Oh, when the star in the heavens is gone, when the star in the heavens is gone, when the star in the heavens is gone, all the work of Christmas, the work of Christmas, work of Christmas must begin. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among brothers, to make music in the heart, to make music in the heart, to make music. When the star is gone, when the song of the angels is stilled, the work of Christmas, the work begins. It begins when the kings and the princes are home. When the kings and the princes are home. When the kings and the princes are home. The work of Christmas begins. When the shepherds are back with their flocks. When the shepherds are back with their flocks. When the shepherds are back with their flocks. Oh, the work of Christmas. The work of Christmas. Work of Christmas. Of Christmas begins. To find find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among brothers, to make music in the heart, to make music in the heart, to make music when the shepherds are flocks, when the king is our home, when the star is gone, when the song of the angels is still. The work of Christmas, the work begins.
I so appreciate Howard Thurman's message that the work of the Christmas begins. And it begins again and again and again in how we live out our mission and our efforts in the world. Embracing freedom, loving inclusively, growing in all ways, and adding to the wholeness of the world. All of that effort, that living into Christmas, shows up in so many gifts that we share, volunteering, using our skills, and also our financial contributions. We take up a collection every week during service as a way to honor that act of giving, to be intentional, tangible, and present in the life and the work we share and keep sustaining. And we also send some of our offering out into the world. We practice a share the plate effort. Half of the undesignated offering goes to a named recipient, while half goes to the work of the congregation. And I want to thank the Social Impact Committee for coming up with our list for 2023. We are turning to our local recipients at this point. And the first for the month of January is Lula NFP. And Lula is a Peoria outreach team that provides food, temporary shelter, clothing, sleeping bags, blankets, bus passes, and other items that are needed by people to survive living outside on the streets or in tent encampments. And all of the people that are being served have experienced significant trauma in their lives, and most suffer from some degree and form of mental illness. And Lula also provides assistance in navigating resources for housing or medical care. They receive no government funding and rely entirely on private donations. So this is a way to help and make a difference truly locally, truly right here in Peoria. And they're also a 501c3. They're on Facebook. They have their own website and so much more. So if your offering this morning is going towards a pledge, please indicate that in the memo line on the check or on the offering envelope. Again, half the undesignated plate goes to our recipient of Lula NFP, and half goes to the sustaining work of the congregation. Thank you so much for all of the gifts, because every one of our gifts adds up into something far greater than any one of us can do alone. And now the ushers will pass the plates, and after the plates have gone through will be our time for lighting candles of care. And now let's have the ushers come forward, please. Edith, would you continue, please? Great. From our separate joys and struggles, we come here to find a place of balance, to find the blessing of restlessness. All are welcome to follow, to lead, to teach, to learn. All are welcome to join in the dance, to catch our breath. All are welcome to give generously, to receive gratefully. If we are steady and composed, if we feel completely and entirely lost, if we don't know what we are feeling, the community has a place for us here. We matter, and we are loved. In that spirit, we gather for the sharing of joys and sorrows in the congregation. We offer our wishes for continued return to good health to Judy Marcus, who is recuperating at home after a short hospital stay. And we also have a note from Kathy McNeil. Her husband was rushed to the hospital in the early hours this morning with a heart condition, and he will be receiving a pacemaker shortly. Kathy is someone who's been one of our newer folks gathering with us, attending since later in the fall. We offer our wishes for health for Kathy's husband, and we offer our care and support to Kathy as well. We also offer a note of encouragement and care and love for Owen Lindsay as he adjusts to his new life at a residential facility in southern Illinois. This is coming from his parents who love him very much, BJ and Terrence Lindsay. So let us offer our encouragement to Owen and also our encouragement to BJ and Terrence as they make this big shift. We really enjoy seeing Owen, and we'll all miss him very much. I want to offer a note of gratitude for yesterday's lunch with Reverend Michael Brown and with Diane Brown. It was such a joy to be able to welcome them back to the congregation that was so much part of their lives for, 28 years. And they are enjoying their new lives in retirement in Santa Fe. But it was really a joy to have folks back and gathered and to share a little bit of fellowship with them yesterday. And thank you to everybody who supported the effort, made it happen. There was a team of people who helped. The magic of hospitality showed up yesterday as well. So thank you very much to everyone who assisted. Now I'd like to invite you to join me for a moment of quiet for all the joys, the sorrows that live within us and remain unspoken, that we hold, that come forth in our gatherings when we are so seated and so present in our congregational lives, for all that is with us and within us, for all that is our lives. Please join me for a moment of reflection and quiet, knowing that our circle of care extends to all of us, whether we speak what is in our hearts out loud or whether we remain in silence. Let us be present to this moment and breathe. Amen and namaste. Let me invite Joe Lakota up for offering our story this morning.
Good morning. Should I call the children or they're fine? Okay. Well, I usually don't use a book in storytelling, but this was a gift from my son and his wife at Christmas. And when I was thinking about a story, I thought, well, I'm going to include this beautiful, it's more like a poem. It's an Oneida song. But does anybody out there have a favorite superhero? Like, yes, sir. Superman, numero uno, Superman. Yes, who's yours? Who? Oh, Spider-Man, Spidey. Yes. The Hulk. Still terrifies me. Wonder Woman. All right. That was an original, a Wonder Woman. Okay.
Black Panther.
Oh, Black Panther. Yeah, there's one. Well, some of our superheroes are real, aren't they? Also. Yeah, it's fun to have superheroes. But I want to remind all of us, especially the children, and the inner child in all of us who's just waiting for us to acknowledge them, that we all have superpowers. And I was thinking about Isaac the other day when I first got the idea to talk about superpowers, because Isaac has a very obvious superpower, and it's capturing people's hearts. Yes. And and I think this person right here does too, has that power. Yes. But a lot of people in this congregation also have a superpower of kindness, which is something you have to work on sometimes, to be kind. And there's a superpower that I've worked on all my life, and I'm finding new dimensions of that. And we all have this superpower. I'm afraid that the loss of this superpower among children and among inner children is leading to our demise. I know there was a slip of the tongue earlier about what can change the world. Hate can change the world. But we plan on changing the world with love. And something we must do is love ourselves, and we must love this beautiful earth that we live upon, this miracle a minute of this beautiful earth. So that means that we have to go out the door, and we have to go into the woods and into the meadow and walk along the river or the creek. And we have to be ready to learn. We have to listen. We have to be still for what may seem a very, very long time. But if you will do this, and if you do this, it can be in your yard, in your backyard. It could be sitting by a window and watching a tree or a bird or a goofy squirrel, or watching the ants on the sidewalk. But it can also be, we have beautiful parks here. But we need to go into nature and be still and quiet and learn. The trees talk to us if we learn how to listen. The trees can heal us. In many indigenous societies, they'll take a sick child and strap them to a pine tree, because pine trees have the wonderful power, as do a lot of old trees, of pulling out sickness and poison. You know, in cities where there's a lot of lead in the soil, they plant sunflowers. The sunflowers pull the lead out of the soil. So plants, trees, animals, by our observation. There's a healing root called osha that's used in much of the Southwest in Mexico. And the people say that we first learned how to use that medicine by watching a bear dig it up and eat it. So what can we learn? If we watch nature, everything goes about doing what it's supposed to do, holding the earth together in its small or large way, aerating the soil. The little earthworms make it possible for the plants to grow. The birds flying, they're spreading the seeds for the plants, the bees pollinating our food. So the least we can do, we, the seemingly least intelligent of all species upon the earth, can at least go out and be still and watch and listen. This story it's actually a song. It's called "Did You Hear the Wind Sing Your Name?" from the Oneida people. Traveling north, did you see the spirit hawk dancing in the wind? How many of you have seen a hawk this past week? They live in our city, don't they? Yes. What a blessing. Did you feel the morning sun's warmth upon your face, welcoming you to a new day? Did you see the white birch standing tall among the dark woods and the greening of the aspen saplings? Did you smell the sweet scent of the sacred cedar or the pine? In the spring, do you see the fields of the three sisters coming? The corn, the squash, the beans. Did you see sun's face in the buttercup? And did you see skies blue in the wildwood violets? Did you greet the four-leggeds and celebrate the winged ones' dances? Did you trace turtles' tracks along the creek and know that you weren't alone? Did you hear the wind sing your name? Does your memory bring sweet grasses fragrance? Did you taste the thunder's moist sky waters? Were you healed by the meadow's wild strawberries? Did your eyes catch sunset's burgundy? Did you see trillium's stars? Lying upon the forest bed's heaven. Did you sense Grandmother Moon guiding you home again? Did your heart bring home the songs of all these living things? Did you, along with these, travel this sacred circle called life?
Thank you, Joe. And now let us sing out our children and youth to their program for this morning. Let us sing to them with Go Now in Peace. I want to invite Regina Stanley forward for our reading, and I think she just went out with her child. Well, maybe I get to do the reading. Cool. That's fine. I want to offer our covenant from the Universalist Unitarian Church in Peoria, adopted by this congregation in May 2009. As a community of love and hope, we covenant together to welcome with open minds and hearts all who gather here, newcomers, members, and friends. To nurture one another with caring words, kind actions, and compassionate concern. To share ideas freely, listen willingly, disagree respectfully, and forgive easily. To inspire one another, youngest to eldest, to thrive in body, mind, and spirit. To work cooperatively toward our goals and openly appreciate each other's unique gifts. To enrich our congregational life by participating, leading, pledging, and giving. To celebrate life and savor its diversity, beauty, and creativity. Thus do we covenant with each other. Our second message, we have an additional message for today, is from my colleague, the Reverend Joanna Fontaine Crawford, who's the minister with Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Austin, Texas. And she has a short video called Covenant as the Core of Unitarian Universalist Community.
Do you think maybe I'm worrying too much?
This creator has begun attending a Unitarian Universalist church and wants to know, is he taking too seriously their covenant? Is he worrying too much about it? And I wouldn't necessarily use the word worry, but treating it seriously and, really putting it at the center of a church is so important. This is our history, and this really shapes everything. Now, I do not know what congregation this creator is attending, so I can't speak to that with any specificity. But I would say for anyone going to a UU congregation, find out about their covenant. The church that he is attending is using a variation of what is called the Blake Covenant, which is a beautiful one. At the church I serve, we have our own specific covenant. And then ask, well, what happens if people fall out of covenant? To paraphrase Martin Buber, we are a covenant-making, covenant-breaking, covenant-restoring people. You are going to break covenant because we are human. And it's not that that isn't important, but what's important is what happens next. At the church I serve, we actually have a feedback, a process map with the different steps so that we can stay in healthy communication with one another. And people actually, at the church I serve, treat it quite seriously and will even say, you know what, I feel like you and I have fallen out of covenant with each other. Can we sit down and talk about this? Also, when it's something that we really emphasize in our new member class, and in fact we say, look, like the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism, that is not a creed. When you sign our membership book, you're not signing that, but you are effectively signing this covenant, this set of promises that we make to each other about how we're going to be together. So, original poster, thank you so much for treating covenant, which is it is the deepest part of our history. Thank you for treating it so seriously, and good luck.
Please rise and body your spirit for our hymn number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Please be seated. So I think there's really some elements of the service today that are excellent examples of how do we live together and work together. And I want to offer a note. The part of what we're doing in this new year is learning new things. We keep learning new things. We keep learning new things. I'm a little tired of the new things. Who's tired of new things? And yet, welcome to being human, right? Welcome. So I want to offer a note of apology to Edith because I realized that today might be the first, she just started with us on Christmas Eve, and today is probably the first Sunday that we had like the children's recessional, and we should have talked about that ahead of time. And I'm so sorry, Edith. We'll figure it out. I have faith that we will. Worship is kind of an ongoing work in progress, an ongoing conversation every single Sunday with the congregation, the minister, whoever is leading the service in a given moment. And I trust that the conversation will indeed continue. On any given Sunday, a promise begins anew. And this promise is between one member and another, between the minister and the member, between our children and us, between the church and the world beyond these doors and beyond our electronica. The promise is that we will cherish and promote physical, spiritual, and intellectual freedom. Hallelujah. We will be responsible with one another for our relationships. We will never cease to explore new revelation in belief. And this promise includes loving the world enough to put our very lives at stake to help it be more whole. And we make these promises because we seek a connection to others in the spirit of life. We want to strengthen that access that meets, as James Luther Adams calls, the ultimate and the intimate, those relations between one another and between us and the larger mystery. We accomplish this task, these promises, this locating of ourselves and acting and functioning with a liberal approach to religion, to inquiry, to our lives, recognizing that our freedom is inextricably tied one to another. And the commitments we make, the promises that we offer based in our values, based in our hopes and dreams, those promises are at the core of what helps guide us, that love that guides us. So as we start the new year and the theme of finding our center for this month, I want to spend a moment in reconnecting with our promises, often talked about in Unitarian Universalism as covenant, and understand and offering that, grounding that in a one of the ways that I talk about covenant that I have shared before in this congregation and have shared along the way. But I'm going to bet that you might not remember what I said 2.5 years ago. So it's okay. So even if you've heard this one before, it's okay to hear it again. And it's also because faith development is not novelty, right? We come back to things again and again, and we are different every time that we return to a new verse, a new poem, a new song. And also for those who are new and gathering with us as well. This is a moment of kind of reflection and discernment and a restarting, if you will. How do we want to be together in this year and in this congregation? There's so many ways in which the foundation of our community is based in our mutual commitment, our very deepest promises one to another. You know, when new members sign the book, the act is really simple, and yet we expect so much that you've already done the work and reflection to say, yes, I'm really willing to lay my name and life into this community, into this circle of care. You have agreements that establish the relationship between ministers and staff and the congregation. We have the moving up of our children 1 year after another as part of our promises made from the church to the child for lifelong support and nurture. Every year, every moment, every Sunday, if you will, congregations welcome new people and new relationships are changed and impacted, every one of us in those moments. These are acts of commitments between the one and the many, and we are called to be intentional, not simply automatic with them. This is why we don't subscribe to any one creed or one single articulation of a statement of faith and expect people to simply go with that statement. It is constant practice of the congregation being willing to come to the people and the people coming to the congregation. It is making a new promise within the larger one that comes every Sunday. It is to say yes to being together and being together in service to our own spiritual development as well as our neighbors, as well as our larger world. And you can make fabulous, wonderful promises. We have beautiful language in any given Sunday service, beautiful hymns and poetry and more and stories. But then we actually get to practice. Then we get to do the doing of things, because tomorrow is the test. The next Sunday is the measure. The 52 and the 104 and the more Sundays are signs of how we put that promise into practice between members and members, between minister and members, between our children and us, and between us and the world. It is the nature of a liberal religious promise to be renewed in every moment, because we do not depend solely on the moment that came before. It is the nature in Unitarian Universalism to be a living tradition. We keep reforming. Some people have made the joke that we're a 2,000-year-old Jewish reform movement because we can't help ourselves. We keep reforming. It is the nature of a liberal approach to faith to keep looking to tomorrow. And it is the nature of religion to help us find where we are with others and with our ultimate concerns. This is partially what I love about the idea of covenant, because there's a cosmic locator beam in the course of that. Let me say a little bit more about that intimate and ultimate I cited with James Luther Adams. It's two different axes. That horizontal, that intimate, is that mutual plane of human experience with us, between human beings, with our natural world all around us. I so appreciate Joe bringing that to our attention in the story. And then there is the vertical, that deeply, intimately subjective experience of the holy. It can be that despairing night of the soul, as well as the light of revelation. That vertical is where we go in solitude and savor the existence around us, but also it can be when we feel cut off and are feeling an experience of isolation. So our promises in our faith community help us kind of maintain and locate. It's like our spiritual GPS, cosmic GPS, if you will. And how do we kind of move and shift in our center? And our promises are our guide stars, if you will, to what we wish is the manifestation of that intersection, that place where we seek, because we know that place can be how we grow, be better able to live what we cherish, and to be sustained, what though the darkness round us close. And so we live out our commitments in covenant with one another. Our very structure serves us well, because we are in relationship with the member congregations of our Unitarian Universalist Association, our siblings, the larger bodies that are siblings with us, such as Live Oak UU congregation in Texas. We do and will make promises with congregations all across the country to support each other, to learn and teach, and to fight for common cause, and at times to disagree. This isn't always about, being happy and cheerful and always okay with one another. At times we will, in fact, disagree. Every congregation individually has its own covenants, formal or informal, sometimes spoken or unspoken. And some operate from covenants established in the very earliest days of their formation. Our sibling congregation in Geneva, Illinois, shares the covenant created at the founding of the congregation from 1842. They recite that covenant every Sunday. And it still translates into every single moment. This congregation is about the same age as the one in Geneva, and this congregation has chosen to refresh its covenant every so often. And that most recent version shared in this service comes from 2009. That covenant, our covenant, was created from a process that included the whole congregation. And the results set the tone for then establishing the mission and the goals of the church. what we still express as aspirations and the immediate work of ministry in the congregation and in the world. And that's that mission, that embracing freedom, loving inclusively, growing in mind, body, and spirit, and helping to heal the world. From my colleague, the Reverend Kim Beach, he says, the word covenant signifies a framework within which intentionality takes effect. The Reverend Robert Latham talks about covenant as a compact among a people which states their mission and how that mission will be transformed into reality by their life stewardship. I love that idea of life stewardship, mission transformed into reality by their life stewardship. So a religious covenant is not the same as stating belief or purpose. One doesn't necessarily have to make a pledge to either of those. But covenant, on the other hand, here's the thing. Covenant requires commitment to address its purpose, as he says. While purpose calls for an empowerment of its vision, covenant empowers its vision with commitment. Covenant empowers its vision with commitment. Covenants ask and answer the questions of why we are together and how we will be together. And when we're part of a congregation with a clear covenant, then people are better able to answer the question of why we gather and better able to fulfill it, better able to articulate both the why and the how. And without a center in a known transformative mission, then Unitarian Universalism can become worthy of the observation that we just believe anything we want. We're so liberal-minded, it's just kind of open to the world. You can just do and believe whatever you feel. No. In case anyone's wondering, the short answer is no. All right. A non-creedal faith could become a set of beliefs without focus, without a deeply driving desire to say how to live that mission. But when lived, covenant offers identity, builds community, gives us good markers for the intimate and the ultimate. Ministry, Robert Latham says, ministry is covenant in action. It is covenant stewardship. And it's the only appropriate gauge for measuring the effectiveness of the ministry is the covenant it seeks to embody. Ooh, we got to live up to something there. The only appropriate gauge for measuring the effectiveness of ministry is the covenant it seeks to embody. So the covenant that is chosen and created by a congregation such as this, you're putting your expectations and your aspirations out into the world. And boy, we want to make sure it's big enough, right? That it's fabulous enough, that it's meaningful enough to be worth how we live. So this is why we talk about, in Unitarian Universalism, covenant being at the center of everything. This isn't quite the language that was used in terms of covenant when I was growing up in Unitarian Universalism, but it certainly was what we were doing, whether we said covenant or not. And as we've grown into being a faith and growing into being the church in all the ways that the church shows up, I can see how much it helps us kind of provide that North Star, if you will, in that XY axis of the intimate and the ultimate. And I just want to take a moment, we're talking about the really big picture here, and I want to take a moment to go into the more immediate understanding of covenant. Because I've seen covenant in practice when congregations are still kind of learning how to do this, how to live with our commitments and promises. Because sometimes a covenant can end up be using more as a hammer as opposed to an invitation to resolve conflict. More of an accusation of, you're out of conflict, bam. not very invitational, yes? There's not an opening, it's more of a push. The covenant is based in mutuality, based in that horizontal. Even while we're trying to be sensitive to everybody's different locations in terms of social location and privilege and age and gender and everything that we have come with us as we're trying to be with one another. But a covenant, if we've created kind of a safe enough space and practiced it a bit, there is room for everyone to be able to speak up. As part of what we're committing to is how to be held and created in this moment. I read through the flow chart that my colleague, Reverend Joe, talks about as part of the Live Oaks practice. It's not fancy. I mean, it's a fairly straightforward flow chart about how to direct conversations and feedback. But it does so in a way that helps kind of guide a conversation, but it also doesn't just simply promise. It doesn't promise that every expectation and heart's desire is going to be fulfilled. They have a healthy congregation team, a place for bringing feedback. And the process is a series of questions. Have you spoken, if you have some kind of feedback or a concern or so on, have you spoken with the person or persons involved? What if someone from the team went with you? Could someone from the team summarize, but with your name, and share that in another context and so on? Is the question, the feedback about policy, performance, or preference? And boy, we got a lot of preference going on because we have a lot of opinions, right? And if it's policy, it directs that to the policy holders. If it's performance, it's taken to the minister and the staff. And if it's preference, then again, the invitation is to talk with the person who is directly involved. And that process works to get clarity on the concerns and where to take them. And also, if at any point that person doesn't want to pursue with direct conversation or with help, then that conversation comes to an end. Feedback comes with a person's name, so there can be relationship and resolution. It's not ever anonymous. I think there's something to be said that as we're listening to each other and working with each other and how to live our commitments, there's a distinction between venting and the expectation of fixing. There's venting over here and there's fixing over here. And each of us can very much listen to expressions of frustration, concern, and so on. And then ask a question, whether someone wants a different outcome than what's being expressed, and what that speaker would like to do to follow through with it directly, with their own presence. So we can talk about in covenant the vastness, the aspiration, the largeness of the vision, the living of the mission. But it also comes down to increments, this living, the one-on-one in any given moment. Those little things, those little conversations, those little exchanges, those set the tone when the big ones come. So let me close with a question and an invitation. What needs to be addressed wherever you are in this conversation about covenant, whether you're part of the congregation, whether you're visiting? What needs to be addressed? Not everything was magically resolved on December 31st. I'm going to just make a guess, right? January 1st showed up, January 8th is showing up, and there's still things to attend to. Yep. What needs to be cared for and addressed in your life, in our lives as a congregation? Finding the center is a practice as well as a promise. And that has been the case in this congregation since its founding in 1843. And this month, we get the chance to explore this center again and again and take it forward in our individual lives and as a body. So let me close with our covenant. As a community of love and hope, we covenant together to welcome with open minds and hearts all who gather here, newcomers, members, and friends, to nurture one another with caring words, kind actions, and compassionate concerns, to share ideas freely, listen willingly, disagree respectfully, and forgive easily, to inspire one another, youngest to eldest, to thrive in body, mind, and spirit, to work cooperatively to our goals and openly appreciate each other's unique gifts, to enrich our congregational life by participating, leading, pledging, and giving, and to celebrate life, and savor its diversity, beauty, and creativity. With that covenant so created among us, let us go forth and live it. Amen. Please join me for our closing hymn. Our closing hymn number 295, Sing Out Praises for the Journey. Please rise in body or spirit. When we take fire from our chalice, it does not become less, it becomes more. And so we extinguish our chalice and take the light and the warmth with us, multiplying its power by all of our lives and sharing it with the world. We have come together to share our deepest concerns, speaking and singing the words of inspiration and hope. We've committed ourselves to do what we can to ease the burdens of those who suffer, to stand for decency and compassion. We have pledged to work for a more wholesome environment for all of us and for all the generations to follow. But these are just words. The hymns we sing are simply songs. All of our reflections are idle thoughts. But when we convert them into loving and responsible action throughout the week, throughout our lives, then and only then will this morning become what we want it to be, a time of worship. And so this worship is ended. Let our service begin.
Amen.